The streets are alive. Bangladesh, a land woven from rivers and resilience, finds itself at a crossroads. What began as peaceful student-led protests has erupted into a maelstrom of anger and violence. The streets, usually teeming with life and the rhythmic clatter of rickshaws, now echo with the chants of dissent and the chilling crackle of tear gas. The spark? A deeply flawed quota system for government jobs, seen by many as a symbol of systemic inequality and a barrier to progress. The government's response has been swift and severe. Schools and universities have been shut down, plunging the nation's future into uncertainty. The internet, a lifeline for information and communication, has been throttled, shrouded in a digital curfew. And in a chilling display of force, the military has been deployed, casting a long shadow over the nation's hard-won democracy. The world watches with bated breath as the situation unfolds, a stark reminder that the fight for justice and equality is a universal struggle. The events in Bangladesh are not merely a local affair, they are a potent symbol of the challenges faced by emerging democracies grappling with historical injustices and the aspirations of their youth. The question now is, can Bangladesh find a path through this crisis? Or will it succumb to the flames of division and despair? A quota on dignity. At the heart of the unrest lies the contentious quota system, a relic of Bangladesh's tumultuous past. Introduced after independence in 1971, the system was initially intended to uplift marginalized communities who had been historically excluded from positions of power. It reserved a percentage of government jobs for specific groups, including descendants of freedom fighters and those from underdeveloped regions. However, over the decades, the quota system has become a tangled web of political expediency and manipulation. The list of beneficiaries has expanded, often driven by electoral calculations rather than genuine social justice. This has created a system riddled with anomalies, where some groups enjoy disproportionate advantages, while others, equally deserving, are left behind. The current protests, spearheaded by students and young people, are a reflection of the deep-seated resentment against this perceived injustice. They argue that the quota system has become a tool for patronage and corruption, perpetuating inequality rather than addressing it. They demand a merit-based system, one that rewards talent and hard work regardless of background. The fire spreads. The protests, initially confined to university campuses, quickly spread like wildfire across Bangladesh. Fueled by social media and a shared sense of anger, they transcended geographical and social barriers, uniting students, professionals, and ordinary citizens alike in a chorus of dissent. The government, caught off guard by the scale and intensity of the demonstrations, initially responded with a mix of appeasement and force. There were attempts at dialogue, with promises to review the quota system and address the concerns of the protesters. However, these efforts were seen as too little, too late, lacking sincerity and a genuine commitment to reform. As the protests gained momentum, the government resorted to increasingly authoritarian measures, attempting to quell dissent through intimidation and brute force. The crackdown was swift and brutal. Police used tear gas, rubber bullets, and water cannons to disperse protesters, leaving many injured and hospitalized. Journalists covering the demonstrations were targeted, their cameras smashed, and reports censored. The internet was shut down, plunging the country into darkness and making it difficult to verify information and coordinate relief efforts. A world watching. The escalating violence in Bangladesh has drawn sharp criticism from international human rights organizations and the United Nations. Amnesty International has condemned the excessive use of force by security forces and called for an independent investigation into the deaths and injuries of protesters. The UN has urged the Bangladeshi government to respect the right to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression. The United States, a key ally of Bangladesh, has expressed concern over the violence and urged all parties to exercise restraint and engage in dialogue. The European Union has also called for a de-escalation of tensions and a return to peaceful protests. These international reactions reflect the growing concern over the deteriorating human rights situation in Bangladesh and the potential for further instability. However, beyond these statements of condemnation and concern, the international community's response has been muted. There have been no concrete actions taken, such as sanctions or diplomatic pressure, to hold the Bangladeshi government accountable for its actions. This raises questions about the effectiveness of international mechanisms in addressing human rights violations and protecting fundamental freedoms.